to him what he did. The ground rules.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's right. That's right.
I'm sorry.
Please go on. Go on.
This is
Article 67 imposes an obligation on every president, and you are the lawyer. My brother is also a lawyer. To give an account.
It's written in English. We don't have to be lawyers to understand it. Go ahead.
So, a president can go to parliament and spend all the time speaking about what he inherited, and he would have fulfilled the constitutional obligation. Not so. But in this instance, the president said that he was not going to dwell on lamentation. He actually went out, if you read the 59-page statement that he put out, to speak about specific interventions that he will be putting in place in almost every sector that he touched on. So not only did the president meet the constitutional obligation, he actually inspired hope in those who were looking for something beyond just indicating what he came to meet. Something, let me also put it on record. That if my brother here tells you that this economy we inherited is better than the one we left in 2016, that is a palpable untruth. Look, even at a structural level, what you feel in your gut, that alone is sufficient to tell everybody that this economy is rotten to the core. Something we have only recently engaged in domestic debt exchange, which is the harshest economic policy ever implemented under the Fourth Republic, if not the entire history of Ghana. They took 1.3 million people through excruciating hardship by telling them that money that they were expecting to receive from government after having bought bonds were not going to come. They were going to reduce drastically the interest rate that they had agreed with government, and they were going to extend the maturities. This took 1.3 million people through hell, including Kama. You remember his lamentation on a public platform. May God rest his soul. So even at a visceral level, everybody who has lived in this country knows that this economy cannot be better than what they inherited in 2016. Now let's look at the figures. Something there's good reason why the president did not dwell on all the economic indicators. There are about 18 of them. In due course, on 11th March, when the finance minister presents his budget, he will go into details about the specific indicators. If you take out the growth rates, all the rest are worse than what they inherited. Indeed, you recall that after the cabinet session, the first cabinet session, I gave a briefing where I indicated that the numbers are far worse than they even put out. Something, it is not true that they left a positive primary balance. It is not true. They set a target of 0.5%, which is supposed to be a surplus. If you know what the primary balance is, it is simply, crudely speaking, your deficit minus interest payments. Because that is statutory. You don't have a leeway. The deficit that they projected for in 2024, they exceeded by a wide margin. The primary balance, if I give you the figure, the market will shake today. It is not true that they left a surplus. They left a negative, far worse than what they projected. Something, nobody put a gun to their head to project that they will get 18% inflation at the end of 2024. They got 23%, which is far worse than what they projected. When they came to power, they met a public debt of 120 billion. We all know the song and dance that Baumia and his colleagues in the NPP made over our public debt. When they were leaving, it was 721 billion. Even then, it was because we had some debt write-off recently, after the domestic debt exchange. They had to supplicate before our lenders to let go of our $2.8 billion in debt. That is how come we even have 721. Debt to GDP ratio, we left 55.6. 2 years ago, it was 104%. The gulf is wide. Now, it is in excess of 70%, which is far above the threshold. And in fact, when it comes to debt to GDP ratio, as I was working, I had in comparing our debt to GDP ratio to other countries. Something, the figure is even not the issue. Please. Yes, but I did not interrupt when you were making that point. You compared us to countries that have 280% debt to GDP ratio. Something, you are talking about countries that borrow sometimes at 0.5%. You borrow at 9%. But when you come to debt, the real issue is your ability to repay. And it was glaring that you couldn't pay. That is why you asked bondholders to forfeit about 240 billion Ghana cedis to you in your domestic debt exchange program. You have gone to external lenders to ask them to take a haircut because you can't pay your debt. At the time you took over in 2016, we could pay our debt and still have some to deal with domestic problems. You could not pay it. So how does anybody look at this economy and tell you that it is better than what they inherited? That is dishonesty. And you see, it is one thing to have mismanaged the economy, but to gaslight people, look in the face of Ghanaians and tell them things that they know to be untrue, is to add insult to injury. And it is little wonder that you suffered the electoral defeat that you suffered. Why? The people of Ghana have voted clearly on what they think the state of the economy is. And that's why I said that even if you put aside the figures that I've given you and did a visceral assessment of our economy, it is glaring. Now let's talk about the debt. Look, ECG alone.
Wait, hold on with those.
Yes.
ECG, Cocoa Board, and the rest.
Yes.
Hold on. Was the president being faithful to the situation, our true situation, when he referred to the sinking fund,
Yes.
what you call the reserve
Yes.
funds,
Yes.
and left out what Dr. Kabiru Tia Mahama refers us to, that he should have referred to what the Treasury main account, where there was an end of year revenue of 3 billion Ghana cedis. There was also 700 million from Treasury bill subscriptions issued in January that remained unused. Additionally, in January,